Cool.
Hello and welcome to another True Crime with Toby. Today. Hello, it's Uncle Toby here, back with another video. Today, I wrapped into True Crime with Toby. Yeah. The reason I'm doing this, I saw Deji do another one. I decided to do one because he did another one, and I haven't done another one in a while. So yeah, this is not going to be consistent. This is something that here. I know my last formula. I put True Crime Mondays, but I'm probably not going to do it consistently, unless you want me to do it consistently.
The police.
So, no horror movie compares to what happened here. True Crime documentary. So I don't know anything about this True Crime documentary. I just typed in True Crime, and I clicked the first one that appeared. But it looked like this is the possible victim.
Not once, not twice. 3 separate times she picked up the phone and told them exactly what she feared. She named the man, she described the behaviour, and she said the words that should have changed everything. He has shotguns, and I'm afraid of him. The officers listened. They visited him, and one of them wrote in his report, he's no...
So, first thing to say, first point, they didn't mention the name of the victim or the perpetrator. They just got about it in the first 40 seconds of it. Like, we already know the name of the victim and the perpetrator. Hopefully, they're going to... Obviously, they will name the victim and the perpetrator later on in the video, but they haven't mentioned that. So, here we go.
Risk to himself or others. On August 8, 2013, Christopher Parry drove to a quiet residential street in Port Wales. He opened the boot of his car, took out a semi-automatic shotgun, and shot his wife twice. The first shot from 6 meters away, the second from 4. Carolyn Parry died at Royal Gwent Hospital that afternoon.
So, we have the perpetrator, and I forgot the name already.
Risk to himself or others. On August 8, 2013, Christopher Parry drove to a quiet...
Christopher Parry. What's that in its mouth? He looks like a psycho. To me. He looks like a psycho.
Street, Port Wales. He opened the boot of his car, took out a semi-automatic shotgun, and shot his wife twice. The first shot from 6 meters away, the second from
4.
Carolyn Parry died at Royal Gwent Hospital that afternoon. She had done everything right. She had left. She had reported him.
So the victim's name is Carolyn Parry, and is Jake Perry or John Perry. I forgot the name of the victim, the perpetrator. Again, let's say one more
Parry
time.
drove to a quiet residential...
John Perry, sorry.
They visited him, and one of them wrote in his report, he's no risk to himself or others. On August 8, 2013, Christopher Parry drove to a
Oh, Christopher, not John. Christopher Perry.
quiet residential street in Newport, Wales. He opened the boot of his car, took out a semi-automatic shotgun, and shot his wife twice. The first shot from 6 meters away, the second from 4. Carolyn Parry died at Royal Gwent Hospital that afternoon.
So Christopher Perry and Carolyn Perry.
She had left. She had reported him. She had named the danger out loud. And the system that was supposed to protect her looked at all of that and concluded there was no risk. This is not just the story of how Carolyn died. This is the story of how she lived and of every warning that came before the end.
So I'm going to read the warning to you just because they appear there and I want to. Just so you know what the warning says, in case you don't want to read it. So the first word is obviously warning. in big red letters as they appear. They put as the disclaimer that to give you some information about it. I don't think it's legally protected, but this is a disclaimer that tells you that something bad is about to happen, or something bad is about to happen. That like for example, this video is created for this video is created as sarcastic videos or sarcasm. Please do not take it seriously, something like that. To what it says before. No, I'm rambling on. I don't want to bore you. Let's get into it. Information about this case is taken from open sources from the internet. Off the internet, the author is not engaged in the author is not engaged in the own investigation. The video is created on the basis of already existing information. The video on the channel is a documentary, narrative, and informative nature. The author doesn't call for violence, which the last bit is something that is like the first two bits are like what they want you to know about the video, and then the bit white is just like a little information about the video.
True Crime, the ultimate serial killer colouring book, features 65 notorious killers brought to life in novel.
That is good. That is something that I have seen people wanting to buy.
Bold black and white line art, single-sided pages dark, detailed, unforgettable. Available now on Amazon. Parry was, by all accounts, a woman defined by the people around her, a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend to many. Those were the exact words Gwent police used when they spoke about the loss of her after the case was closed. They are simple words, but they tell you something important about who she was. She was woven into other people's lives. She worked at a bank. She lived in South Wales, a part of the world built around close communities, extended families, and streets where people know each other's names. Public records do not give us detailed accounts of her childhood, her schooling, or the early chapters of her life. But what we do know begins with a marriage. Caroline married Christopher Parry when she was a young woman. Over the following 27 years, they built a life together in Croesus-Leon, a village just outside Huangbro.
I'm just checking my I'm checking my keyboard real quick. Okay, let's get into the video and I'm just stopping pausing.
South Wales. They had 2 children. They had a home. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary family in an ordinary Welsh community. But inside a marriage, the walls keep secrets. And over time, the life inside that home had become something very different from what she feared. Christopher Parry was, by the account of those who knew the relationship best, and by the evidence presented in the courtroom years later, a controlling man, dominant, possessive. The word the prosecution would eventually use was not prepared to let go. But that phrase implies a specific moment when something ended. The truth for Caroline was more gradual than that. It was a slow erosion. It was 27 years of a marriage that somewhere along the way had stopped being a partnership and had become something she needed to escape.
So she needed to escape the marriage because obviously it was controlling. He was controlling. He was abusive, and all that.
We do not know exactly when Caroline made the decision. We do not know how long she sat with it, or how many times she thought about leaving before she finally did. What we know is that in April 2013, she told Christopher Parry that the marriage was over. She moved out of the family home in Coimbra and found her own place in Newport. At the age of 49, Caroline Parry was starting again, leaving a controlling partner.
So she left. She must have obviously came back. That's why he was able to shoot her 2 times.
It's not the end of the danger. It is often the beginning of it. Caroline moved to Newport and began building a life that was entirely her own. She had a job. She had her children. She had friends and she had family close enough to lean on. And she had, for the first time in a long time, a future that she was writing for herself. She also had, in the months that followed, Christopher Parry watching her. He did not accept the separation. In the weeks and months after Caroline left, Christopher began a pattern of behaviour that would later be described in court as keeping her under surveillance. He texted her repeatedly. He phoned her. He followed her. The prosecution would later describe a
So he stalked her. So I heard something that stalking is now illegal. It wasn't illegal before, but stalking is now illegal. So, yeah. I didn't know why it wasn't legal before, but stalking is now illegal. You can get arrested for stalking.
An obsessive, sustained campaign against a woman who had simply decided she deserved better. About 3 weeks after the marriage breakdown, Caroline contacted Gwent police. She was clear and specific. She told them that Christopher was stalking her. She told them that during the marriage he'd been possessive and controlling.
Possessive and controlling, that's the word he used.
He'd been treated as an urgent flashing warning. He had shotguns. He held a legal firearms license and kept multiple weapons at his home in Coimbra. She was afraid of what he might do with them. This was not a vague, emotional phone call. Caroline named the behaviour, described the history, and identified the specific physical danger. She gave police...
Because he had a legal permit, they were like, nah, he's not dangerous. He just had the guns for himself, to protect himself, and all that. But they were dead wrong. Dead wrong.
Everything needed to assess the situation seriously. An officer visited Christopher Parry and spoke to him. His assessment was recorded formally. He is no risk to himself or others. Caroline continued with her life in Newport. She had to. What else could she do? She reported what she needed to report, and the assistant responded. She would simply have to hope that the response had been not enough. Contact from Christopher did not stop. It intensified. At some point in the months that followed, Caroline began a relationship with a new partner. She was living in Newport. She was separated.
So she had a new partner. What was the new partner's name?
It was a free woman. She had every right to move forward. But when Christopher learned that Caroline had a new partner, that she was not simply waiting somewhere in the grey aftermath of their marriage, that she was actually building something new, something shifted. Jealousy, the court would later became a driving force. This was not grief over a marriage ending. This was something uglier, the sense that a possession had been claimed by someone else. Caroline contacted police again. On this occasion, she reported that Christopher had been aggressive toward her. She described specific incidents of behaviour that had frightened her. The contact, the following, the aggression. All of it was escalating. Then there was the passport. At some point during this period, Christopher Parry refused to return Caroline's passport. It seems like a small thing in the face of everything else. But it is not a small thing. A passport is not just a document. It represents freedom of movement, independence, and the ability to go somewhere he could not follow. Withholding it was an act of control. It was a statement, disguised as bureaucracy, that said,
After this app that I had when I tried to download Office,
I still have power over where you can go. Caroline reported this to police as well. 3 contacts, 3 reports.
let me just delete that quickly.
Together they painted a precise and accurate picture of a woman in danger from a man who held firearms, who could not accept the end of their marriage, and who was steadily closing in on her new life. With an accurate analysis to police, I still have power over where you can go. Caroline reported this to of control and the ability to go somewhere he could not follow. Sense freedom was not a small. It seemed like a small period. Christopher. Then there was the passport.
The
At
passport.
some point during this period, Christopher Parry refused to return Caroline's passport. It seems like a small thing in the face of everything else. But it is not a small thing. The passport is
Why is it not a small thing? Let's see why.
It represents freedom of movement, independence, and the ability to go somewhere he could not follow. Withholding it was an act of control. It was a statement, disguised as bureaucracy, that said, I still have power over where you can go. Caroline reported this to police as well. 3 contacts, 3 reports, each one more serious than the last. Together they painted a precise and accurate picture of a woman in danger from a man who held firearms, who could not accept the end of their marriage.
But the police did nothing about, I don't know why. Police in this country are, some people think they're Doctor Who. They're not all there. They can advocate, but not all there. They can approve a lot.
And who was steadily closing in on her new life. The police have this picture. They have all 3 reports, and still, no action was taken that would have removed Christopher Parry's access to his guns. In the weeks immediately before August 8th, 2013, the court would later hear Christopher Parry's behaviour became focused and deliberate. He was not just passive in refusing to accept the separation. He was watching, waiting, and making plans.
Making plans to end her life and making plans that wrongly influenced her. Someone's calling me. It was my grandma. That was calling me.
He booked 2 days off work the day before the killing. He loaded a semi-automatic shotgun with 3 cartridges, and he drove to Seabreeze Avenue in Newport. The street was quiet that morning. Seabreeze Avenue was an ordinary residential road in Newport. The kind of street where people walk dogs and children cycle, and neighbours wave at each other from their driveways. Caroline Parry had been staying at the home she shared with her new partner. At some point that August
Oh, so she didn't go back to him. He went to her. I thought she went back to him.
she came outside. Christopher was already there, watching. When he saw her, he went to the boot of his car and took out the shotgun. Neighbours would later describe hearing what sounded like loud bangs. Some said they looked out of their windows when they heard the first shot. One witness told the court she had looked outside and seen Christopher with the gun. Pathologist Dr. Richard Jones testified that Caroline suffered 2 large gunshot wounds. Ballistics expert Robert Hugh Griffiths told the jury that the first shot was fired from approximately 5 to 6 metres away, the second from 4 to 5 metres. These were not the distances of a struggle or a desperate chaotic incident. They were the distances of intent. Caroline Parry was shot twice. After the second shot,
So the man saw his intent.
turned the semi-automatic
So he intended to kill her. He intended to injure her.
gun on himself and fired. He placed it under his jaw and pulled the trigger. He survived, though with catastrophic facial injuries. Armed officers responded to the scene on Seabreeze Avenue. They found the couple on the road. The gun was recovered. Forensic teams were called. The quiet residential street became a crime scene. Caroline Parry was taken to Royal Gwent Hospital. She was later pronounced dead. Her children had lost their mother.
So she was dying, she was alive, and then she was dying. And she came to her wounds.
Her family had lost a daughter, a sister, a friend, and Newport had witnessed, on an ordinary summer morning, the violent end of a life that had fought hard and bravely to begin again. Christopher Parry was taken to hospital in critical but stable condition. He was treated for his self-inflicted injuries and survived. On November 5th, 2013, he was formally arrested on suspicion of murder. Later that month, he was charged. He appeared before Newport Magistrates Court charged with the murder of Caroline Parry. His defence, when the trial began in mid-2014 at Newport Crown Court, was a precise and deliberate legal argument. Christopher Parry admitted manslaughter. He did not deny being present, pulling the trigger, or causing Caroline's death. What he denied was intention. His lawyers argued that Christopher had been in the grip of a severe depressive episode, that he had been suicidal, that his intention on the morning of August 8th had been to kill himself in front of Caroline, not to kill her, that the murder of his wife...
Let me just quickly make fun of the way. It took me a while, but I made the thumbnail.
had not been a plan, but a terrible accident born of mental...
But you're not going to see that because I made it with CapCut.
It was, in legal terms, a coherent argument. It required the jury to believe that a man who had stalked his wife for months, who had booked 2 days off work the day before, who had loaded a semi-automatic shotgun with 3 cartridges and driven to her address had not planned to kill her. The prosecution presented a different picture. They described a man conducting a campaign of surveillance and control. A man who was, as they put it, not prepared to let go.
Not prepared to let go of her. He wasn't prepared to end the marriage.
Caroline built a new life and found it intolerable. The 2 days off work, the loaded gun, the deliberate journey to Seabreeze Avenue, the shots fired from measured distances. None of these things, the prosecution argued, were the actions of a suicidal man in crisis. They were the actions of a man who had made a decision. The court also heard, in Christopher's own words from his police interview, that he had never threatened Caroline, that he had given her plenty of freedom, that he loved her to bits. Those were...
Obviously, you'll say that to save his skin.
Those would have been difficult for many of the people in that courtroom to hear. Because those were the words of a man who genuinely did not see himself as dangerous, who believed in whatever version of events he held in his own mind that he had been a good husband, that Caroline's fear had been unreasonable, that his firearms, his stalking, his refusal to accept her independence had all been expressions of love. The jury did not accept Christopher Parry's account. On a majority verdict of 10-1, they convicted him of murder. In July 2014,
Good, they're convicting him of murder.
Christopher Parry stood in Newport Crown Court to be sentenced for the murder of his wife. Mr. Justice Wynne Williams, the sentencing judge, accepted that Christopher had a history of mental illness stretching back more than a decade. He accepted that the breakdown of the marriage had triggered what he described as a significant depressive illness. These were real conditions. The court took them seriously, but they did not change the conclusion. The judge told Christopher Perry
They could have saved her if they took away the guns and they locked him up. So she'll be alive today if he actually naturally died, if they took proper caution.
That the evidence showed he had left home that morning with a settled intention to kill his wife and himself. He had loaded the gun with 3 cartridges. He had driven to her address. He had waited. And he had fired from distances that made any claim of accident or impulse impossible to sustain. He also said the words that mattered most, that Christopher Perry had deprived Caroline's children of their mother. Christopher Perry was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years.
Well, minimum term of 26 years. That means minimum 26 years before parole.
Before he would even be considered for parole. Outside the court, friends of Caroline expressed relief. The man who had stalked her, frightened her, and ultimately killed her despite everything she had done to stay safe, was going to prison for a very long time. But relief is not justice, and justice is not the same thing as prevention. Technical and legal analysis. In September 2014, the Independent Police Complaints Commission published its findings on how Gwent police had handled the contact with Caroline Parry before her murder. The findings were damaging. The IPCC found that Caroline should have been assessed as being at high risk of serious harm. She had contacted police 3 times. She had reported stalking, aggression, control, and firearms
So she should be processed.
access. By any standard
Well, she wasn't.
assessment framework for domestic abuse, she was a high-risk victim. She was not classified as one. The IPCC also found that officers did not have all relevant information about the couple's history when responding to incidents. This is a systemic problem, not just an individual failure. When police attend a domestic incident, they often deal with it in isolation, without the full picture of prior contacts, prior warnings, or the pattern of behaviour that makes any single incident meaningful. In Caroline's case, the pattern was clear and dangerous, but officers responding to individual incidents may not have been able to see it. There was also a specific failure around firearms. Christopher Parry held a legal shotgun license. He had 3 legally held firearms at his home. The IPCC found that the number of concerning indicators in his behaviour, combined with the incidents reported by Caroline in May 2013, should have triggered a referral to the firearms licensing department.
But it wasn't.
Such a referral could have led to a suitability review and potentially to the revocation of Christopher's license. If that had happened, the weapon he used on August 8th might not have been in his possession. The IPCC also identified a structural weakness in how firearms warning markers worked within the system. These markers were designed to flag up when officers attended an address where firearms were registered, but they only showed up if the report came from the address where the certificate was held. Caroline had moved out. She was living somewhere else. When officers responded to incidents involving her and Christopher, incidents taking place at her new address, the firearms marker may not have appeared because the shotguns were registered to the Cambridge address, not to the Newport one. This is the kind of systemic gap that does not feel dramatic until it is used to explain why a woman died. A technical detail in a database design meant that the weapon most relevant to Caroline's safety was invisible in the system every time she asked for help. The IPCC made recommendations covering domestic abuse policy, stalking and harassment training, and improvements to firearms licensing referral processes. Whether those recommendations were implemented, and how effectively, is a question that goes beyond the scope of this case alone.
The police basically did nothing.
The findings themselves were a clear official acknowledgement. The system had
We have 8 minutes left. I'm getting bored, so I'm going to end the video here. I don't want to make the video too long because we're too long already. I've already been recording for, let's see, how long? 15 minutes. Close to an hour.